Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to be talking about reptile shows. So let's get started. Hey guys, so it's that time of year, so I wanted to put out a couple of videos for reptile shows specifically. So for those of you who've never been to one or don't know what they are, a reptile show, they're actually a lot more common than people think. They're in all cities and towns and stuff like that. You can go to fire halls, you can go to a whole bunch of different types of locations for these. Normally you pay like $10 to $15 at the door to get in, but then once you're in you can spend as long as you'd like, and you can find just about any different type of reptile species, caging, artwork, clothing, whole bunch of stuff, and everything is reptile related or at least exotic animal related. You can see things like the last reptile show I went to, there were some finnick foxes, there were short-tailed possums, there was a whole bunch of animals that weren't just reptiles. For this video we're going to be talking about what to look for at these different shows. For example, if you want to get one of your first animals, or if you're looking around trying to figure out what reptile works for you, or even if you already have something in mind that you want, this is just a few things to help you out. So we just finished up vending over at Rexpo, which is in Rochester. It was their November show. It went really well. It was a great time. But something that we see all the time is spur of the moment people who've never even seen a reptile in real life. They decide, okay, I want to buy this ball python right now with no research and no equipment already set up or anything like that. What you're going to want to do is do a bunch of research for an animal. Make sure you want that specific animal. Like, let's go with a ball python or a bearded dragon. Already have the supplies, or at least have pre-purchased supplies, because at these shows you can get a lot of vendors from different places that normally aren't around you. For example, like I brought PVC cages, so people were able to pre-order cages and then pick up animals at the show. That way they had the cage, or even people who wanted cages for animals they were going to get in the future. For example, bearded dragons, it actually takes a day or two to set up their cage minimum. So when you get a PVC cage at home, either you have to set it up, you have to clean it out, you have to get it ready, and then you'll have to figure out what size bulb to get the right size hot spot. And everyone uses different fixtures, they have different wattages. Once you have that, you want to make sure the entire enclosure has the right ambient temperature along with the right hotspot temperature. You have to figure out where you want the water, any decor. Some people like to put stick down tiles or even tiles on the wall. Here's a great picture. This is something somebody did to one of the cages they purchased from me, but the thing is, it takes a little bit of time to do that. If you're going to seal a cage, that alone takes 24 to 48 hours before the smell dissipates. So make sure you're not just spur of the moment buying an animal when you don't even have a cage. For example, if you have a quarantine rack at home and you want a ball python, that's completely different. That way you've already got something set up, but especially if you're new to reptiles, make sure you do the research, make sure you have somewhere to put the animal, the enclosure, the food sources, all that kind of stuff, because a spur of the moment animal sometimes can be not very good, because then people normally don't care for the animal properly, they haven't done enough research, the animal's not what they thought it was going to be, or a lot of times at reptile shows the reptiles are very cold. And then the show we just went to, it was very cold, and the animals are a lot slower to react, and people can think they're a lot nicer and friendlier than they are, but reptiles are wild animals, so people sometimes will get like a snake because it's very docile at the show. It gets a home, warms it up, and they can be aggressive or snippy or bite, and that's part of having a reptile. So just make sure you do a lot of research before purchasing anything. Once you figured out something that you want, a lot of reptile shows either have websites or they have ways for you to contact breeders or different types of people that will be at the show. A good recommendation for someone you've never met before would be ask about their social media. A lot of different vendors will have cards and tags you can take that tell you like their Instagram, their Facebook, their websites. Take a minute, go walk around, look up their pages, look up reviews on their Morph Market. You can do a lot of research on them just to see if they've had good or negative reviews from other people before you even purchase. Continue to talk to them, and another good thing is to see if they know about that animal. A lot of people buy bulk animals and then resell at shows, unfortunately. So if they know nothing about the snake and they're very, they're trying to rush you into a sale, chances are they didn't breed it. It's not, or it could just be a not captive bred animal. It could be a wild caught animal. So just make sure you ask some one-on-one questions, because there are good breeders out there and they'll take the time to talk to you, go over it, give you information. Some of them even have pamphlets on care for the different animals that they have at their tables. Sometimes breeders won't let you hold the animal. I actually believe that's a good thing. So You might think, well, I really want to hold it, see what it acts like, its personality, but a lot of animals at the show, they're either stressed or they're cold, so they're going to be a lot more lethargic than they are normally. So anything you're holding or interacting with at a show, the chances are its personality and the way it actually acts is nothing compared to when it's actually heated up and brought home in a new environment. Another thing is there are mites. There are things like that at reptile shows, unfortunately. People still bring wild-caught animals, and some people just have animals that are infected that they still bring to shows. So you just want to make sure you're looking for that type of stuff, especially if you're purchasing a darker colored reptile. You're really looking at the scales, you're really talking to the breeder, and you're really checking it out. So if a breeder doesn't want you holding their animal, don't automatically take that as a negative, especially if they're being really good, really honest with you and forthcoming with information. They just might not want anything to happen to that animal. I don't like people holding my animals specifically at shows, especially kids, because, you know, if the animal could bite them, they could drop it, and the animal could get injured. I just don't like risking it. So a lot of them are in very bright and enclosures like these and set up so that you can actually see the animal. A lot of breeders are nice and cautious, and I think that's a positive. Another great example is if you are looking to buy, let's say, a ball python. I like to ask what the animal is feeding on. If they're feeding on a live mouse, I will generally say no, even if it's something that I've been looking for. Sometimes ball pythons can be very picky. Sometimes they will only eat mice. I don't have live mice available most of the time. So I don't want an animal that will not eat a frozen thawed rat for me. So make sure you're asking what they're eating, and some breeders will even bring and have, like, say, index cards that tell you every meal, what they ate, what size it was, you know, if it was live, frozen thawed, mouse, rat, whatever it was eating. A lot of them you can ask that type of stuff. Another tip is when you do get home, do not go to your reptile area, don't go to your reptile room, wherever you keep your reptiles. As soon as you get home, take off everything you're wearing, your coats, your socks, put all of it in the washer machine. Take a shower, and then wait a day or two before you go near or touch your reptiles. Because again, something like mites, they can actually live on surfaces like on you, on your coat, stuff like that for a lot longer than you think. Also, just have mite spray and stuff like that and spray them down when you get home just as a precaution. But especially don't just not wash your hands, touch a bunch of reptiles, and then come home and touch yours. There are other types of illnesses that can be spread among reptiles, and you just want to make sure you're being as safe as you can with all your animals. One of the hardest things is when you purchase a reptile, make sure once you've gotten it home, you do your best to not touch it, to leave it alone, and to give it some time for an actual quarantine. Some people only quarantine for a couple of weeks, but normally you want to quarantine something for a couple of months. The whole life cycle from egg to mite can be up to 30 to 40 days. So if you actually have one mite egg on your snake, you brought it home, it's only 30 days, now you only have 1 or 2 mites, another 30 days you could have 100 mites. So by waiting 2 to 3 months, you can make sure that that animal has no infection, no illnesses, and no things like no parasites. Another really good tip that I've found is when you are looking at, let's say, a breeder has 30 different types of reptiles. Chances are they're not breeding 30 different types of reptiles. And you can ask them, are these bred by you? Are they wild caught? What are they? And if they're kind of beating around the bush, they're probably wild caught, or they probably purchased them all in bulk. They didn't actually breed them themselves. Another really good example is if you look at a wall of cages, and all of the cages are the same size, they all have the same heat, they all have the same type of bedding, but in them are tegus, ackies, ball pythons, chameleons, savanna monitors, but all of them are set up in the exact same setup. Again, they probably didn't breed these animals. They're probably just setting them up to make them look as nice as possible to be able to make the best sale. I love reptile shows. A lot of people love them. They're normally very, very packed and stuff like that. So make sure if you're going to go to a reptile show, like for example Rexpo, you can actually purchase early tickets that get you in the door an hour early. I'd highly recommend that because then not only do you get in earlier, you get either a t-shirt or a hoodie, and it ends up being the same price as if you would have purchased it at the show anyway. And on top of that, you get to get the best parking, and parking can be very difficult depending on the venue that you're going to. Rexpo is in the middle of Rochester, and there is places to park, but within the first hour of the show, it's completely packed. Sometimes reptile shows are completely packed beginning to end. So if you're looking for something incredibly specific, the best advice I could give you would be to reach out to a breeder beforehand that's going to be at the show. Make sure that they're reputable. Look them up on, again, all social media. Look them up on Morph Market. There's no no way to lie on Morph Market because you know it's a real person, because you have to show a license to actually have a Morph Market account. And you can have reviews, not only from buyers but from sellers, all about that one person. So Morph Market is a great way to look up, because if you see a lot of negative reviews, or in the last few months negative reviews, just make sure that you're doing all your research. So if you're able to find someone, you can even, a lot of breeders will do a deposit and then you pay the rest at the show. So you'll make sure you're holding on to the exact animal that you want and you're able to purchase what you want, and you have time to get everything set up, do the research that's needed, and get the animal that you've really been waiting for. But that's it for this video. If you guys haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps out. We do videos every single Wednesday, and we are still doing our free ball python giveaway. If you haven't participated or you haven't even seen it, go back a couple of videos. You can't miss it. We have to get to 500 subscribers, and we're going to be giving away a completely free ball python, and we're going to be paying for the shipping. So we'll see you next time.